JNU here, there's DU here, there are so many big universities here, I'm sure that, things are quite okay there. But it's not okay. And I say this over and over again, and I'm going to say it again at the risk of repeating myself. In many of my talks I've said this, that a couple of years ago, they refused me housing in Delhi because of my caste. And while we were talking about this veg and non-veg, etc., one of the things that the person who was supposed to give me the house, the owner of the house, told me, that out of curiosity, I asked him, why this? What is your problem? If I eat non-veg, I'm doing it in my house. And he said that the garbage shaft is the same one that he's using, which I will be using as well. So we're using the same garbage. So even I am not fit enough for my own garbage to mix with his garbage. I was so shocked to see that even garbage has caste. That, my garbage is Dalit garbage and his is, I don't know what caste he was, but, definitely a dominant. And so somewhere, I think these things continue to happen in college campuses, in housing, media. Almost, I think it's 0.01% of the total editorial staff in media are from the Bahujan community. I think very, very less amount of people still in the editorial. I mean, there are many journalists now, now we are very proud to have many our own, Dalit owned media like Muknaik and others. But media is still one aspect where you see that, you can see that very clearly that who is dominating the media today. And it's very critical who's dominating the media today, because the messages that go out are of a certain kind, are of a certain type. And that's because the media can never be ours or has never been ours. And that's why it's important to create our own media. I'm just going to look at these different sectors that caste has crept into and the way that it is actually functioning. The other area that I'd like to talk about is the climate crisis. Many times the climate crisis and the global climate discourse is only dominated by a certain caste and class. While it's dominated by a certain caste and class, the impact of climate crisis is most felt by our people, or most felt by the Bahujan, the Dalit Adivasi community. We live in the most low-lying areas where it's strong by floods, life. Your house, without your land, and if there is any relief left, if there is any food left, then they will distribute it to the areas because they don't want to go to those areas. But at the same time, when they wanted to clear the dead bodies along the beaches, they called our people to come and clean. So this is how caste operates. Now, caste operates very much in a state like Kerala, where everybody says, oh, fantastic, Kerala is one of the most, what they say, they sort of equate it to development in North European countries. But actually, caste is so prevalent in a place like Kerala. Again, I will refer to an incident that happened during I think it was 2012 floods, where there was a boat that was going to pick up people on his boat. and there was a Brahmin family who was waiting to be picked up. When they saw that this person was from a certain caste, they didn't get on the boat. So he passed by and he went ahead. On the way back, they were still standing in water. They'd rather die than get on the boat, which is being, how do you say, I don't know, ride, you can't say ride, but which is being manned by, row, right, which is being rowed by a person from a certain caste. And that the person who was rowing the boat said that you will be standing here for the next 2 days. You might as well come onto my boat, because if you don't, you're going to die. And they came on the boat under the condition that there is no physical contact between them, because they felt that the physical contact would kill them rather than them standing. They would rather be standing in the water and kill themselves than come and have physical. So I think places like Kerala also are, caste operates in ways that we cannot imagine. So from a developed state like Kerala to other states in India, I think there is no state that is totally devoid of caste discrimination or discrimination based. At the moment globally they are using the term based on work and descent or discrimination based on work and descent. I can give you n number of examples like this from the work that we do on the ground and how we encounter caste and how we are, responding to that. But I'd also like to say that there is also systemic problem. And what is that systemic problem? The systemic problem is that even policy, where you do a lot of work on, policy itself. There are, for example, the National University Scholarship, which is very relevant for me. There are also so many cases where students are awarded the scholarship. No backup plan. Where will he get money from? There are many students who have reached out to us and said, please give us a loan, for some time till the government releases the fund. The policy itself is discriminatory. There is no standard to say that, as soon as the student gets admission, as soon as the state gets scholarship, the money should be in his account before he leaves this country, or as soon as he reaches, the money should reach his account. This kind of policy is absolutely discriminatory for our students, because somewhere along the way there is a point of no return for them, because they are in countries where they cannot get any support. Of course, there are many of our people, then we connect to different people and we say, okay, give them some money, give them some initial investment so that they're able to continue to do their studies. Including here, post-metric scholarship is a huge problem. Many of you know this scholarship, must have availed of this scholarship. While in universities like JNU and other universities, maybe it's easier, but if you go to second-tier cities in the country today, it is almost impossible for students to fill a form, to get data, to know are aware of these schemes, are aware when they have to fill these schemes, when they have to put in their paperwork, what are the documents that are required. And we continue to tell the government that we have to make this kind of information available in the way that is meant to be available. Not only online, but there has to be, village sabhas, at the panchayat level, people should know when these scholarships are out. Many students we have seen who have missed the deadline because they didn't know when the deadlines were. So I think public policy in itself, that is a systemic problem, where public policy itself is so discriminatory that how can we push the government, both the state as well as the central government, to ensure that policies take into account, a much more well-drafted policy that will actually finally be useful for the students who are going in for scholarships. The other thing is also, for example, if there is a disaster and the state is giving compensation, a Dalit who does not own land will never get compensation. Only the person who's owning the land, but the person who's working on that land. So as a laborer, I will not get compensation, but the person who's owning that land will get compensation. Now both of us have lost our livelihood. I've also lost my livelihood. The person who's the landowner has also lost his livelihood. But the government schemes will, by the government policy, only considers that if you own land, you will get compensation. But anybody else who does not own land, but his livelihood is dependent on that land will not get compensation. So there itself you can see that there are so many gaps in public policy itself, where I think this is where we need to really work, because once we have a policy, we'll be able to ensure and push for effective implementation. One last thing, and then I'll hand it over to Professor, is that in our country today there is 50,000 crimes against the Dalit and Adivasi community, which is not my data, not my organization data, but it's data by the National Crime Records Bureau, out of which 7,000 crimes are Dalit women, crimes of Dalit women, which are either sexual harassment or other harassment, public parading, rapes, etc. I won't go into the details of that. And we have a Prevention of Atrocities Act, which is a very progressive act, we must say. But the implementation of that is that even today, if a young girl has had some kind of a sexual harassment case and goes to a police station to file an FIR, even today she will not be able to file an FIR, because the police does not want to take up the case, because if they take up the case, they have to book it under the POA Act, and they don't want to show that there is an increase in the number of cases under the POA Act. So the struggle starts, you have already faced this kind of physical abuse, but the struggle starts not just after, the struggle starts after the physical abuse, even to get any kind of support or help from the police or any authorities is such a huge problem today in this country. And there starts the problem where, again, it's a systemic issue, that how do we get the police, how do we get the security personnel who are supposed to protect us to actually protect us, but instead, they make it more difficult for. I remember going with a young girl to a police station who was gang raped. She was 13 or 14, and I remember the police officer looking at her and saying, because she had a few numbers of some guys on her phone, saying that, character assassinating a 13-year-old girl, and saying that when she's like that, why are you so worried about? So I think these kind of statements coming out from people who are, who are supposed to be our protectors, who are supposed to be, giving security to our people on the ground, we must protest this. It's much more difficult for young girls and young women, wherever it is, whether it's education, whether it's access to justice, whether it is accessing any kind of policy in this country, or any kind of scheme for women and girls. It's that much more difficult, And the last thing I'd like to say, that as we are building this movement, as we are part of a movement, we need to push both the state as well as the central government to ensure that while there are great, policies, we have a policy. I think we are one of the few countries who have a policy on targeted budgeting, where there is a specific budget allocated for Dalits and Adivasis in this country. It's a fantastic policy. But what is that policy, what is that money used for? They are used to buy laddus during Diwali. Like, why would you spend our money to buy laddus for Diwali? Or they used to buy, bullets for the guns, for security for the CMs. Or build swimming pools, or they built this stadium for the Commonwealth Stadium was built with our money. So the money, instead of going actually to the ground to ensure the community has access to livelihood, education, health, the money is diverted for things that has no impact whatsoever on the people or on the community. So I think we need to together collectively build this. So the caste is not just operating at the level of society, which we have to condemn and we have to push. We have to push for better, sensitization, etc. I don't know if that onus should be on us. I think the onus to educate the other people cannot be on us, so we have to find a way how we can do that. But I think in addition, we also have to break the systemic caste oppression that is continuing to be here. There is a high level of impunity, both by the state as well as people from the dominant caste who use violence as a tool of oppression for us, and we need to continue to oppose that and continue to ensure that at least what the Constitution has given us, the right to equality and several other rights that we have because of the Constitution, I think at least we need to push for that in the days to come. So thank you and Jai Bhim.